Hello, welcome to this video on protocols used in test automation by 17september.net. I'm AP and let's get into the video. To begin with, what is a protocol? A protocol is nothing but defined set of procedures and standards one has to follow in order to achieve what they want to. So here in this context of test automation, we need to use a protocol to achieve the communication between the browser and the automation libraries. So there are a lot of protocols that was used to achieve this. Here primarily we'll see about the three different protocols, of which I'd like to explain two in detail. The first one is JSON Wire Protocol and the next one is Webdriver Protocol. So both these protocols are developed by W3C, the Web Consortium, which is kind of the governing body of how the standards has to be for any web development in the World Wide Web. So they have two different protocols, and of which JSON Wire Protocol has been marked obsolete with the latest changes, and there is only Webdriver Protocol that is available for the users to kind of use. So we'll see in detail about how this Webdriver Protocol works, and then what are the tools that kind of uses that protocol and what are the advantages and disadvantages of this particular protocol in this video. The next protocol that I would like to talk about is the Chrome Devtools protocol. So this is something which is kind of gaining in popularity with the latest tools that kind of uses this particular protocol. So Selenium itself is kind of considering the options to implement the Devtools protocol inside it, and that is something which is going to come up with version 4 and above. So we'll see that in detail, but before that we see this Chrome Devtools protocol was initially developed by the Chrome development team. So they use this to kind of control the Chrome browser, which in turn led to the development of multiple automation tools to kind of inherit this particular Devtools protocol and achieve the results in a much quicker and an efficient manner. So let's get into the details of the Webdriver W3C protocol. So the Webdriver W3C protocol by default works in such a way that it needs a WebDriver or a driver for each of the web browsers. So if you want to automate a Chrome browser, then you would need something called as a Chrome driver, which is an executable file which facilitates the communication between the Chrome browser and the automation scripts that you have developed. And if you want to use if you want to automate the Safari browser, then you need a Safari driver, and if you want something called as a Firefox browser, then you need the Firefox Gecko driver. So these drivers by default are version controlled, and what happens is a next version of Chrome driver will work only with the next version of a Chrome browser. So there is a dependency for a user to kind of keep updating and be up to date with the versioning, or restrict the browser and the Chrome driver from getting updated so that the automation communication happens seamlessly. So by default, a Webdriver W3C protocol will need a WebDriver or a Chrome driver, which acts as a proxy servers to kind of facilitate the communication between the browsers and the automation scripts. And a general characteristic of this protocol is that it is relatively slow, because you need a proxy server in between for the communication to happen between the browser and the automation scripts, which has the potential of slowing down. So it is comparatively slow when you compare it with the other protocol that is available. The main advantage that the Webdriver protocol is that it has been there for years and years, and it supports most of the browsers which majority of the firms use. Like even the IE browser is being supported by this particular protocol. But the glaring and most important thing that is missing with this protocol, which is kind of being developed by currently, is that it doesn't have access to the network related information. So what I mean by network related information is that if you are a kind of tester who wants to test the behavior when the API fails or something like that, then you need access to the network logs, which kind of makes the job simpler. You can always do it with other tools, but what I mean by that is something which I like to show now. So if you come to a Chrome browser and then kind of inspect on this particular page. Then you go to this network section, and then let's say if you want to refresh, then you will see there is n number of calls that is being done to kind of take each image or elements from specific section. So let's say if my task is to kind of test the scenario when a particular API is failing. So here in this particular situation, if I wanted to kind of say I want to block this particular webdriver.png image. So this is this image that is kind of achieved with this particular URL. So if I want to block this particular request, then I do so, and then if I refresh, then you will see that this image will not appear. That's because the API has been blocked. So now I did this manually. So imagine this can be done with the help of a code. So WebDriver Protocol doesn't let you access these logs, so which is something which is kind of a major disadvantage with the competitor that it has. So this is what I mean by not having access to the network related information. There is other possibilities and other things that you can do with that, like clearing the cache and more other stuffs that you can do with the access to network. But generally, this is how WebDriver Protocol behaves. So here you can see the list of tools, or like the most popular tools that kind of uses this protocol. So Selenium till version 3 and also version 4 will continue to use WebDriver W3C Protocol, and there are some JavaScript libraries like automation libraries like WebdriverIO, and then you have Protractor, and then you have Nightwatch as well. So these automation tools kind of make use of W3C protocol. So now let's see in detail about how the WebDriver protocol behaves. So as a automation tester, we write automation scripts in the language of our choice. So it could be something like a Java, Python, JavaScript, C# or Ruby. You can write automation scripts in any programming language that is there which has the automation libraries. So obviously the next step is to have some automation libraries. As I explained earlier, this is for WebDriver protocol, so we have used in WebdriverIO, Protractor, Selenium or Nightwatch. So you can have any of these automation libraries, and then what happens is once you have this installed, then the communication between the automation script happens with the automation library, and the automation library in turn communicates with the drivers. When I say drivers, it's nothing but the proxy servers which you have to kind of choose in terms of which browser to automate. So here let's assume that if I have to automate a Chrome browser, then the automation library, let's say WebdriverIO, needs to communicate with the Chrome driver, and for that the version compatibility has to be there. And even in addition to that, the main thing that needs to happen is the WebdriverIO automation library has to communicate with the Chrome driver through the protocol which we call it as WebDriver. So what is this WebDriver protocol? I'll show you a small example of what a WebDriver protocol will look like. So this is a script which I just ran, and this is just a basic script that WebDriver provides. And what I'm trying to do is that in a Cucumber framework, I'm trying to launch a URL and then verify a few basic texts. As you can see here, by default, the WebDriver IO, which is the automation library, initiates a new session with WebDriver protocol. So WebDriver by default initiates a WebDriver IO, which is the automation library, kind of initiates the WebDriver protocol. And once that particular session has been initiated, then what happens is a series of communication through JSON, or it's like REST API calls. So there has been a lot of commands that kind of happens on the backend. This is something which we don't have to know in detail. All we need to do is like, okay, when we have to call this particular method, and what happens on the background is that there will be a REST API call between the Chrome driver and the browser. So that happens, and what they do basically, here you can see that the command is to navigate to a particular URL, and then for that particular command we also get a response, and then based on the response it will be either an image or an object, like in this case where we have selected a particular element. And then let's say if I have to verify something else, I need to verify if suppose a text is being correctly displayed or not, and for that particular situation you can see that the command will vary. Here you can see that get element text is one of the commands which is being sent to the browser by the automation library through the Chrome driver, which is the proxy server. So this is basically how the communication happens. Now, as you can see, from the automation library through the WebDriver protocol, we have reached the driver, and from driver we kind of send some HTTP requests to the browser, and the browser in turn responds with a particular REST API, and then that is being transmitted to the automation libraries, which in turn returns to the programming language. And once you have the response, what we can do is to do some assertion based on the libraries that you have. Probably a Mocha library will give you something called as an assert, which you can kind of use to validate whether the response is expected or not expected. So this is in general how WebDriver protocol works. I hope I have clarified how WebDriver protocol works. So now let's get into the next one, which is the Chrome Devtools protocol. So Chrome Devtools protocol, as I said, is the advanced version of automation, if you want to call it. So why I say that is that it's something which is upcoming, and it's for the modern browsers like Chrome, with Microsoft Edge, and all those latest browsers kind of supports this particular protocol. And there are quite a few automation libraries that has come up, like Puppeteer, which was initially developed by the Google team to automate the Chrome browser. Then again, that has been kind of now moved over to something called as Playwright, and that has been acquired by Microsoft, if I'm not wrong. So they are coming up with their own automation libraries, which can be used up by all the users to kind of get maximum access to network log, as well as to kind of control the browsers. And there is the Cypress, which is kind of the most popular tool, which uses the Chrome Devtools protocol, which has like loads and loads of examples which you can kind of refer. But it also is a premium tool that is available there. It is also noted that Selenium version 4 is kind of trying to implement the Chrome Devtools protocol, so that you don't have to move away into a different tool as well. So the choice is always ours. So speaking about the main difference between the WebDriver protocol and the Chrome Devtools protocol, there is no need for the drivers, and because there is no need for the drivers, the time taken to kind of establish a communication between your browser as well as the automation libraries, it's very less, because there is no intermediate proxy server, which kind of reduces the time taken to kind of complete the request and response. And the next one is that it is obviously fast because of that particular reason. And the next main advantage is that it has access to the network logs. So network log, once you have access, you can kind of block API or do anything that you want. You can also intercept that particular API and kind of respond with a different one, and see how the UI is behaving in that particular scenario and stuff. The major drawback with this Chrome Devtools protocol is that it supports only the modern browsers. If there is a legacy system, or like there is a company, if you are in a company that kind of is kind of legacy in its approach, then this will not be the ideal tool for you to kind of choose. You can always choose a tool which kind of supports both Chrome Devtools protocol as well as the WebDriver protocol. Now let's take a look at the pictorial representation of how the Chrome Devtools protocol will look like. So it's exactly the same thing. The only thing that is missing is the Chrome driver or the proxy servers. You don't need to have the version maintenance and all those downloading of exe files or installation of a separate drivers for the communication to happen between the automation library and the browsers. So this protocol kind of lets you control the entire browser, and it exposes the network's logs as well. So as you can see, the programming language, whatever be the automation scripts that you have given, kind of reaches the automation libraries, and from there it kind of sends HTTP requests directly to the Chrome browser or any of the browsers, and then they respond back, which kind of can be dealt with in a way that we need. So this is kind of the major differences that one can see with Chrome DevTools protocol in comparison with WebDriver protocol. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to ask you for a favor to please click on the subscribe button as well as the like button. And if you have any questions or if there is any feedback that you would like to give it to me, please comment on the comment section. Thank you.